You're listening to The Warehouse, a Speaking of show by WFSU. The art of printmaking goes back hundreds of years, and many different cultures have their own version or take. Sangha Press is a Tallahassee workshop that is home to printmaker Mika Fowler, an artist working with wooden type and a vintage press to create one-of-a-kind works of art. Fowler joins host Josh Johnson to discuss printmaking, collaboration, and more.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of Speaking of. I'm Josh Johnson, and today we have an incredible guest. The word that best comes to mind when I'm describing this guest is emblematic. Like so many of my other guests who have captured the attention and the imagination of Tallahassee and Leon County through their different mediums of art and work, this person has done the same, and it's through a medium that we haven't talked about on this show yet. That medium is printmaking, and this person is the Mika Fowler. Hey, Mika, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here today.
For people out there who have heard the name Mika Fowler, it's obviously synonymous with Sangha Press. And so let's start there.
Sangha Press, it's been about 10, 12 years ago now, and I started out doing small letterpress work, Tonglen cards, meditation cards, Buddhist-related kind of publications, small, usually handwork.
The name Sangha is Buddhist in itself, am I correct?
It's a Pali word that means community.
Community, which is the theme of not only my life, but this show. And so let's dive in there. How has printmaking and community been able to tie in through your work?
One of the things that occurs when people come out of printmaking programs is they suddenly have no press to work with. And so recognizing that, there have been some fine printers that have come to me needing press time. And rather than sell it to them, I have an open studio every Saturday, and there's a good half a dozen that participate. So yes, I have formed a little community.
You have been an important part of the broader community. And how did you get started in printmaking?
Actually, what got me going was I joined the International Typographical Union in 1973, which brought me into newspaper production. And at the time, there were a lot of dark rooms used, and we were using offset lithography. There was an old gentleman that had a letterpress shop in the basement, and he was kind enough to give me an idea of how it worked.
For the people at home that don't know what lithography is, what is that?
Lithography is the way newspapers used to be printed. It's based on the concept that oil and water don't mix. So when a plate comes into contact with an ink surface, it picks the ink up, and it only transfers to the sheet. That ink, the white areas are covered with water, and so they don't mix, and you print using a chemical combination, whereas letterpress work is all relief work. It's movable type.
And so when you enter Mika Fowler's open studio, you see what I call, and I hope this isn't too tongue-in-cheek, these ancient-looking print presses. How old are they? I mean, what are those things?
Well, the one you passed when you came in the door was an 1898 Chandler and Price press. But it's a treadle press, and the operator runs the treadle very much like an old treadle sewing machine, and it's very much like pedaling a bicycle. And as you pedal it, you're putting a sheet of paper in, the press closes, it prints a copy, and then you put another sheet in. It's all by hand. The other press, the beast of the shop, is a 219 Vandercook. It weighs a couple of 1,000 pounds, was built in 1949 by Ed Zurich, by the Vandercook Company and his crew, and it's a beautiful machine.
Absolutely. These are works of art, and then what comes out of them, I would say, is art. But I remember talking to you a while ago, and you said that it's a mix of craft and art, or maybe just craft. How do you make that distinguishing line between what you do and what art is, or what is utilitarian about it?
Well, when I'm doing a mass-produced piece, a piece that's got text, and I'm going to do 100 of them, I don't so much consider that art.
Sure.
What happens in the shop a lot of the times is you'll get in a mood, you want to say something. And so you go to you ponder it for a while, and then you get to the press. I'll usually, put on my thinking hat the evening before, so when I arrive at the shop, I have a general idea what I'm going to do. But some days I walk in there and just not a clue, and I start putting together text. And in those days when the text doesn't come, I'll either do some color backgrounds, or I will hand stitch some books.
Some of the stuff that you have become so locally famous for is the stuff with the smeared backgrounds that also have kind of like the abstract symbols interweaved in them within very literal text that obviously means something. What is that and why is that?
Well, it's a combination of things. A lot of it is that I'm incredibly cheap and never want to throw away a piece of paper. And what I'll do is as I work through the day, I have proofs, and I'll pull a proof every day of every piece. So I've got different text going on, different images going on the sheet, and I will use that sheet to pull my proofs on repeatedly. And then after the sheet gets loaded up with enough text, I will often use the sheet to clean up the press. I'll load a bright color on the press, throw solvent on it, and then get busy making these color backgrounds. I stole that technique from Chris Fritten, who was the itinerant printer, and I picked that up from him. And as a result of that, Midzuk from Amsterdam, he founded the School of Bad Printing Europe, and he announced that I was School of Bad Printing North America. So I'm proud about that one.
And so if I'm hearing you correctly, it's kind of trash because you're using them to clean the ink out of the press. Am I hearing that right in some way?
It's all ephemera, and you're right. Usually those cleanup sheets become trash because cleanup sheets will get too dark and you got to throw them away. But no, I have white ink. I can throw text on anything. Yeah.
It has become some of the most beautiful local art I've seen. You know, I worked at a supermarket to get myself through college. I started in high school, but it was one of the slogans of that supermarket. When you passed by trash or something that had fallen off the shelf, don't pass it up, pick it up. And I am so glad that you decided not to pass up these cleanup sheets and to pick them up and make them something, because what you've made them into really has loaded our local community and just the local conversation and zeitgeist with so much good work.
Thank you. One of the things you might be pointing to is that the printed pieces, if say a text piece, they have a sort of ephemeral feel to them because, you know, they're temporary, they're going to go away, and they were mechanically reproduced. What happens when I start folding a sheet and coloring a sheet and building color on a sheet is that sheet begins to have an essence to it, whereas the printed commercial work is pretty cold and alone in the world. But when you start to build the essence of something, that's what I enjoy doing.
When people are talking about ephemera, they're talking about usually like paper or works produced on paper. But I do think it's a broader term that actually identifies everything because nothing's here to stay. In that vein, do you, like other artists or other artisans, see your work as something for posterity, something that will live longer than you, or something that will serve longer than you?
This work is meant to be seen and printed in this time. A lot of times, artists, visual artists of all ilk, their ego gets involved with the work and they decide that they need to catalog the work because it needs to go out for posterity and they have to control the work somehow or another after their death. And I think that's appropriate sometimes, but I clearly understand that this is paper and this is the time I exist, and a sheet of paper is going to last, I don't know, 75 years, 10 years in the Florida climate, but it's not about longevity. It's about, to me, it's more about the process, the doing of the work.
You know, that answer escapes all pretentiousness, and escaping pretentiousness is in some ways a theme, too, of Mika Fowler. You do have this way about you that doesn't really feed into some of the narratives of other people, let alone artists. Where does that come from? Where is that bent rooted in?
I never thought that art should be a competitive sport. And so much of the artist community seems as though that they're going to win the prize if their ego is the largest. And so I've decided to move to a garage in Levy Park and entertain myself quietly. I think it's probably the best thing to do.
Speaking of the best thing to do, oftentimes I ask guests, is there a definition or a responsibility of art? I kind of have a definition myself, and I've always thought that art should be used as a conduit to move societies forward, conversations forward, something that adds to the fabric of our living. Your art has, very popularly so, been political. Is that a catharsis for you? Is that an objective metric because of the times that we live in? Or is it just something that sells? Or where do you come in that definition of political art or activist-related art?
Don't want to say I am their equal, but I am similar in the notion. I'm like being in the graffiti world. The graffiti's not going to last there. It's going to go up on the wall and some yahoo's going to paint over it. Whereas if you throw a poster up on a wall, somebody's going to come out with a power sprayer and get that thing off of there and wonder who put that up there. And it becomes more of a nuisance. And to me, that's part of the job of artists is to be a nuisance to the rich and powerful, because these are some interesting times we live in. And I think that if an artist is not doing some type of political work, keeping in mind that the subversive act should always be discreet, they're really not helping us move forward.
While I've seen a lot of your work over the years, one that I've been newly introduced to, which may be one of my favorite, is highly political in its language. But the reason that it's so cool to me is because it's a collaboration with you and another local artist that also means a world to me, Thomas Bacot, who's a tattoo artist and has done some of the work that I keep concealed. How did that collaboration come about?
I don't remember exactly how we met. Maybe it was my old assistant, Jordan. I'm sure she had some work done by Tom. But anyway, I came up with the idea for this resistance poster for a show that Grant Peoples had put together. And Tom, being as generous and kind as he is, said, "When do you need the design?" And he was also kind enough to also design for me the one and only Sangha Press T-shirt that pictured me as Ganesha dancing on the lotus with my trusty dog. Tom's just a pleasure.
Out of sight. You as Ganesha. While I don't know if I would call you a deity, I would say that you're at the top of the mountain in your wisdom and in your craft. Has it been a long road there? Have you learned everything there is to learn about this?
Oh, no, I am a novice. What is it Benjamin Franklin who said life is so short and the craft so long to learn? You know, anybody that tells you they've mastered their craft, ponder that.
Be wary of them.
Be wary of that. But no, to me, it's a matter of play these days. It's like, what can I do to a piece of text to make it more interesting? Can I apply color to it? Can I apply solvent to it? Can I begin to break it down? Can I use my fingers on it? Mm-hmm. It's playtime for me in there, pretty much.
How do you bring in your play? How do you choose your colors? How do you know what you're going to do?
Well, generally, I don't. Again, I'll just start from zero.
Every day still?
Pretty much every day.
Yeah.
If I've got something that it's taken me 2 or 3 days to build, of course, it'll be a bit slower going. But play is important in art because you're using your hands. And I learned that there was great comfort in adjusting a press when I was a mere press apprentice. Mm-hmm. And so often days my hands will lead the way sort of subconsciously. And I just sort of stand back and let the piece happen.
Is there anything on the print press that you haven't done that you want to do? Or will you find out when you do it?
I mean, that's the whole thing. There's a discovery every day. And one of my discoveries is that at 70, memory is not as sharp as it used to be. And I forget I make these things. I make 200 or 300 posters a year, and sometimes I only handled that particular poster one day. So a lot of it gets lost to me. And it's like Christmas morning every time I go through a stack, and it's like, oh, my old friend, I remember that.
Absolutely.
It's great fun.
That seems like great fun. You were actually a photographer before a printmaker.
Yes, I was handed a camera when I was 13 and told to get out of the house pretty much.
And much like printmaking, photography can either be extremely literal because you're capturing what you see, or it can be extremely imaginative. Have you ever made the tie between those two art forms?
Oh, absolutely. The documentary absolutely informs even the one's most personal work, I think. You're looking for that shot that's a little off, that makes it yours, that gives it that thing.
A lot like the name Sangha pulled from Buddhist philosophy or principles. You too have this type of Zen philosophical nature to you, which spills out onto your pages, even though they're very literal sometimes.
Well, some days, but other days I'm just a grumpy old guy. Some days I feel like I'm that guy, I'm on the press and I'm making a poster and it's like, am I that guy yelling, get off of my lawn? It's like, maybe some days.
Well, there's art to him too.
I guess.
Speaking of the documentary nature or personal nature of art, every year I moderate the local iteration of the Tallahassee Film Festival. And this year, Spencer Hopkins, a wonderful local director, made this quite absurd and beautiful surrealist film called Life in the Seed. And as I'm sitting there, I see Mika Fowler, and some of it is shot inside of your studio. Do you get a kick out of that type of stuff, people coming back and appreciating who you are, or just using you to decorate their own lives because you are who you are?
My whole thing is to just be sort of a disciple of the craft. And I would rather you come in the shop and make something of your own than to buy a piece from me, honest to God. But when people come to the shop, they bring their creativity in, and oh boy, I get to sort of be a little remora and work and just get some of their creativity. Sure. And I think it's good for everyone. It's a good energy exchange.
That's wonderful. I always see stuff from a local bent. And so Life in the Seed for me was Tallahassee. And to understand that in that seed, some of the mitochondria was Mika Fowler or other really cool people that have decorated this place was just such a relief for me and such a cool thing.
There are a whole bunch of very talented people in this town.
A whole bunch.
We're loaded.
And so in closing, I want to show this piece because I think it's cool. Not only does it show just the incredible workmanship of a master printer, it also says acquire a sublime reputation. I think you have a wonderful reputation. Mika, this was an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you for gracing not only Tallahassee with who you are, but for this show today with who you are. Thank you for coming.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
We're now releasing these conversations as a podcast. Check out The Warehouse, available on all platforms.